Welcome back to the Golden Standard. I am your hardstyle kettlebell coach, Colleen Conlon, and today we are talking about the bent over row. This is one of those foundational exercises that is really going to serve you if you have goals around building muscle, building strength, and you are a beginner. Now, this is one of those exercises, just because it's beginner friendly, it doesn't mean like if I'm not a beginner, it doesn't serve me. I have been lifting for 8 years. This is something that I always have some type of a variation of in my own training programs, but it is friendly for beginners and it gives you a lot of bang for your buck. So we're gonna go over it today. I wanna talk through creating tension like we have been over the past 2 weeks. I wanna go over breathing, and then we'll dive more into the exercise in and of itself. But let me give you a demonstration so you know exactly what it is we're talking about today. That is a bent over row. Specifically, that is a single arm bent over row, but we'll talk more as we go along. So, to get started, we need to understand what it is to create tension. Now, if you have been going through this series with me over the last 2 weeks, you know in the goblet squat and in the deadlift, we talk a lot about total body tension. You're bent over row, you still want total body tension. However, there's going to be less of an emphasis on lower body tension and more of an emphasis on upper body tension. So let's just remind ourselves, and if this is the first time you're joining, I want you to understand what it feels like to create tension in the lower body. So hop up, or you can save this and hop up later, but find a neutral stance. Your knees are soft, you're just kind of hanging out, and notice how there's not a whole lot happening. You're just standing here. But now notice what happens when you spread your toes out on the floor and you press your big toes and your pinky toes down and you try to rip the floor apart with your feet. And you keep your knees soft and you think about almost wearing a belt buckle and trying to tip the belt buckle up towards the ceiling. Just start to notice what kind of energetic shift do you feel throughout your lower body. And then relax. That is creating tension, and we need that when we lift to stay safe and to make objects feel lighter. When it comes to upper body tension, and this is a big piece of what we need to talk about today, we really do want to figure out how to engage our lats for the bent over row. So I want you to grab a towel. A hand towel is great. If you don't have a hand towel, like a soft headband can be great. A wrist guard can be great, just something that you can rip apart and you don't have to be upset if you actually rip it. Okay, so from here, feet neutral. You don't need tension. You can have tension if you want to practice it. But I want you to pull your shoulders down, pull your shoulders back, and try to rip the towel apart. You're going to hang out here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shake it out. What did you feel tightening up? What did you notice? Let's try it again, and I want to bring the awareness right back behind the armpit. Okay, so your hands, they're right in front of your hips. Shoulders, drive them down. Drive your shoulders back. Rip the towel apart. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shake it out. Okay, that tightening sensation, that's what we're going after in this bent over row today. Now, if you are not super aware of creating this kind of upper body tension, it might feel a little like, am I doing it? I'm not quite sure. And in that case, I want to give you something else that you can play around with. Now, I understand you might not have access to rings in your current setup, So you could actually do this holding onto a doorknob, and I will show you that, but this will make a little bit more sense for right now. And basically what needs to happen in order to engage our lats, I want you to look right back here. We want to make sure the shoulders down, back, and we're squeezing shut, and we feel all of this tension building up back behind the armpit. A very easy way to see if you're doing it or not is if you come over to something like a ring, like a TRX suspension trainer, or even holding onto a doorknob. If you allow yourself to lean back, and as I'm here, you see how my shoulder is in front of my earlobe, and you see how you can't see my neck? Right now my lat is not packed. This is not what we want, but this is very common when people start doing bent over rows. So instead what we want to think shoulder down, shoulder back. And then I'm trying to squeeze my armpit shut. So do you see how this looks very different than this? As we're pulling, we need this to be the look, and the sensation is going to be tightness back here, okay? Typically when I start teaching people how to engage their lats, it can feel kind of like this for a while. So if that happens for you today, it's okay. One of the best things that you can do is just check yourself hanging from something, like a ring if you have access to it, but if you don't, I'm gonna show you this. And this is definitely like a choice in the moment. Let's do this. So if you have access to something like a doorknob or just something you can hang back on, if I hang back, I don't want my shoulder forwards and up. I want it down and I want it back. Down, back. Play with it. And it might take some time, and that's totally okay. All right. So we have the idea of this upper body tension. Now, when it comes to the bent over row, it is technically a grind. When it comes to hardstyle kettlebell technique, we have fast exercises known as ballistics, think swings, snatches, cleans. Then we have slower exercises like your deadlift, like your squat, like your bent over row. These are grinds. Depending on the type of exercise, you get a different type of an exhale. Ballistics get quick, short exhales like this. Grinds get something longer, kind of like this. When we perform our bent over row, we want that long exhale. Now, notice when I take an inhale, I want to send the breath down so that my rib cage begins to expand. What I don't want to happen is for my chest to lift. I'm going to demo the difference for you. So if my chest is lifting, it's going to look something like this. That's not the move. Instead, we want the chest to stay relaxed. I put my hands on my ribs. And the rib cage will expand. So every time we take our inhale, we need the expansion to happen. And every time we take that exhale, it's pressure on the exhale. This is going to help us keep our abdominals engaged as we're going through this pulling pattern, okay? So can we just practice that for a moment? Can we create some upper body tension? Can we practice the breath and then we'll dive into the bent over row? Yeah? Okay, let's do it. Grab your towel. And legs can be relaxed. Shoulders down, shoulders back, rip the towel apart. Take your deep belly breath in. We'll exhale for a count of 5. Shake it out. Let's do it again. I'm going to count for you this time. Shoulders down, shoulders back, armpit shut. Deep belly breath in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. So something that you might notice is as that exhale is happening, as you are creating this upper body tension, everything feels very tight. We need that tightness. You can't be loosey-goosey when you're lifting. That's when injuries happen, or it's also when, thoughts come up in your mind like I can't lift more. It's because you're not creating the type of environment that's going to allow you to lift more. Your breath, your tension, they are foundational pillars in order for you to make serious progress and to not get hurt when you're lifting. So now let's start to talk about the pathway a little bit more for the bent over row. When we are going into this, your setup can vary. And depending on who's coaching you, what the program is, there can be some different setups. So I just want to show you some common things and we can play around with it. But when you set up for your bent over row, you could be very much in your hip hinge. Similarly to your deadlift, your stance can be kind of wide. The weight can be on the inside of your leg, like this, and you can keep it tight as you pull. You can have a little bit more of a narrow stance. You can even afford to fold at your hips a little bit more so the shoulders are very close to being in line with your hips. You can pull like this. You can have a staggered stance where one leg is in front and the majority of the weight is in that front leg and the back leg is just acting kind of like a kickstand. And it's gonna look like this. I would say those variations are very common and it just depends on what's being called for in your program. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, and for the sake of what we're doing today, just pick a stance that feels good in your body, okay? Now, one thing that is common regardless of the stance that you pick is making sure we have a little bit of a anterior pelvic tilt. Ideally, we want to be very close to neutral, but for a lot of people, a slight anterior tilt will help. So what do I mean by that? We can be, look at my hips, we can be in a very neutral stance, but we can tip our belt buckle up. This is known as a posterior pelvic tilt. Or we can tip our butt back and pop the booty. This is known as an anterior pelvic tilt. When we are in our bent over row, we want to be somewhere between neutral to a slight anterior pelvic tilt. And we know we're in the right position if, when we set ourselves up, we can feel a slight stretch reflex in our hamstrings. If your hamstrings are really tight, it might be a little bit more intense, but it's not going to be this crazy stretch, but there should be something going on, kind of like you're pulling at a rubber band. What we don't want happening is to tuck under. This is going to be a recipe for I feel my low back. So regardless of the stance that you want to pick, I want you to just think slight booty pop so that I can feel a slight stretch reflex in my hamstrings. Got it? Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about before we even put one hand on the kettlebell is practicing this with a towel. So anytime we have two hands on the kettlebell, it's going to be a little bit easier for us to create that upper body tension because we have something that we're pulling against. The second we start to go into single arm work, we need to have a stronger mind-body connection. And not to say that you won't right off the bat, but a lot of times it's not something that comes natural for a lot of people. So you just have to practice. So if you are brand new to the bent over row, I would encourage you to grab a towel. And you're gonna thread the towel through the horn. And you're gonna pull your shoulders down, back, squeeze your armpit shut. We're gonna try to send the kettlebell right underneath our belly button and then lower it right back down. Now I want you to notice that as I pull, do you see where my elbows are in space? You see how far back they are towards my hip bones? Notice they're not up here. I want to make sure I'm able to show off my neck the entire time. So elbows back. Watch this. As I do the bent over row, I want to feel my lats. I want to feel that slight stretch reflex in my hamstrings, and I want to feel my mid back doing the majority of the work. I want you to think from like belly button to the top of my sports bra line. All of that is doing the work. As I pull, I know it looks like it's my arm, but I want to think about pulling from my mid back and my lats. Now, let's try a couple. Let's try it with a towel, and then we'll take it a step further. So, when you set up, I'm gonna have you, for the sake of right now, let's have the same stance. Let's go wide. Kettlebell is going to be a little bit in front of your ankle bones. Think like midfoot, which is different than how we have been setting up the last 2 weeks for the goblet squat and the deadlift. We're gonna create that upper body tension. We're gonna find the stretch reflex in our hamstrings. It'll be a long exhale as we pull, inhale as we lower. And as you do this, you're trying to send the kettlebell right underneath the belly button. We're gonna go together. Let's try 3 to 5 reps. In 3, 2, 1, here we go. Okay. Once you finish your reps, I want you to just take a second and notice, what do you feel? What muscles are talking to you? Mid-back, that's a good thing. Back behind the armpit, that's a good thing. That stretch reflex in the hamstrings, that's a good thing. So if you're feeling those things, take it as a sign that you're on the right page. Now, if we're not quite feeling those things, we might need to, adjust something or tweak something. This is when I would encourage you, record yourself. A lot of times, especially as new lifters, the way it feels isn't always the way it looks and vice versa, which is why it's so important to actually notice, what do I feel and what does it look like? Let's try it again. And this time, when we do it, I want you to bring extra awareness to where you're sending your kettlebell, where you're sending your elbow in space. Because once we go into single arm work, it's gonna feel a little bit like this. So reminder, kettlebell, I'm trying to set it right below my belly button. I want my elbow back towards my hip bone. Let's try 3 to 5. I'm gonna set you up for it. So kettlebell is right in between my arches. Shoulders higher than hips, hips higher than my knees. I can feel that slight stretch reflex in my hamstrings. Bonus points, try to rip the ground apart. I reach down for my towel, shoulders down, shoulders back. I'm trying to rip the towel apart as I'm here. Exhale as I pull, inhale as I lower, setting the bell right below my belly button. 3 to 5 reps. Here we go. What do you feel? What do you notice? Okay. So this is a really nice place to start. And I would say, if this feels like a lot of new information, just stay here for now. The next thing I would encourage you to start playing with is a single arm bent over row. And the reason for that is it's just a really common exercise that shows up in different coaches' progressive training programs. And I want you to just understand, well, how do I do it? We're gonna do the exact same thing that we just did. The only difference is it's one hand on the bell instead. Now, when you set up for a single arm bent over row, again, depending on the program you're following, they might ask you not to hold on to anything for added stability. They might encourage you to hold on to something for added stability. It depends, both work, both can be good. So I'm going to encourage you, play with this with added stability. That's what I do for my beginners in swing to snatch. So if you have something like a chair, a bench, where you can get into, let's play with a staggered stance now, where you can get into a position kind of like this, where the shoulders are still higher than the hips. That would be great. Now, if depending on the object you have in your limb length, it doesn't look like this, it's like your hips are way higher or there's no way you can reach to the chair, you can adjust. You could even put like a kettlebell on top and hold on to the kettlebell. But ideally, the position that we are looking for is for the shoulders to still be higher than the hips, as if we were getting ready to go into something like our deadlift. Okay, so from here, I still need to keep my lats engaged. It's gonna feel a little bit different on both sides. So the side that is pressing down into the chair, I need to make sure that shoulder is down and back, and I'm kind of leaning my weight forward. You see that? What we don't want in this position is this, and this is really common. We get kind of like lazy on this side. I need you to show off your neck. So shoulder down, shoulder back, and I shift my weight forward. It's those 3 small tweaks that are going to be what allows you to feel the tension back behind the armpit. And we need that. Okay, so I have that going on this side. I take my kettlebell on the opposite, and I'm just going to pull the kettlebell as far back towards my hip bone as I can. Notice you can see my neck, and I can feel my lats. If I were to demo it for you on the other side, this is what it would look like. And the same step goes as before. I want to have that slight booty pop so that I can feel the stretch reflex in my hamstrings. I want to feel the tension back behind my armpits. I have the long exhale. I can feel my mid-back doing the majority of the pulling. So that's everything that goes into this exercise as a beginner. And the reason I say as a beginner is because there are more things we can layer onto it once it's not a brand new exercise anymore. But this is a really nice jumping off point, and I want to give you one more opportunity to practice with me. So you can either pick the towel, you can try this single arm bent over row variation as well. We're going to try 3 to 5 reps. You're going to notice what you feel, and then we're going to wrap it up, okay? All right, so figure out the setup that you want. I'll give you a couple moments. I'm going to check the comments in the meantime. Let's see if anybody has any questions. All right, I don't see anything. If I missed anything, if you want to drop something, go for it. All right, 3 to 5 reps. You can use the towel, you can use the chair. I'm gonna set you up, starting with your upper body tension. Shoulders down, shoulders back, armpits squeezed tightly shut. Find that slight stretch reflex in the hamstrings, pop the booty slightly. Deep belly breath in, long exhale as you pull, inhale as you lower. Here we go, 3 to 5. As you pull, you're trying to send that belt back towards the hip bone. Not up towards your chest, back towards the hip bone. Notice what you feel back behind the armpit as you pull. Nice. Fantastic job. Again, that is the bent over row. There's so many variations for this exercise. I wouldn't say anything is, necessarily better than another. It's just different. It depends on what the program is, what the goal is, but this is the exercise that you can start to practice, have it in your repertoire so you are ready to pull it out when the time comes, depending on the program that it is you are on. If you would like to receive homework from me to practice this skill, send me a DM. My handle is I am Colleen Conlon, and you will get on the list of the skill work to continue to drill the single arm bent over row or the towel bent over row, the bent over row. All right, I will catch you in the next one.